God, I can't do this anymore. Take this away. Either take my life or take this situation and transform it. He did not take my situation and transform it. I'm just going to tell you right now, that's not how my story goes. He did not change my situation. He changed me in the situation and he made me bigger. He equipped me to handle the situation, to handle the marriage issues, to repair the issues with my older children, to parent Gracie from a place of peace and joy, not from stress and striving.
Welcome to Witness the Wonder. I'm your host, Christina Smith. Today, we're continuing our conversation with Deena Trocino, the founder of Specially Empowered Moms. She was sharing with us in our last episode how she received the unexpected news that her child, Gracie, was diagnosed with Down syndrome. We were deep in that conversation. We're going to jump back in there. Deena, you were talking about how you're juggling your own business, you're juggling a ministry, you're juggling homeschooling your children, and now a special needs child. It really drew me back to when I was doing that myself. I was homeschooling my daughter. I was running a youth ministry and I was running a business. I had done that for many, many years, probably a good 16, 17 years. And all of a sudden it became too much because our bodies can only take so much for so long. And I had been running in such a high capacity. I mean, and let's be truthful, that's 3 full-time jobs. In my own life, I ended up having a mental health breakdown at one point because I was just doing too much. My body was like, okay, enough. Did you end up at that point as well? I mean, it sounds like a lot of the same things I was doing. What kind of impact did that have on your body?
Absolutely, Chris. I went through all of that and then some. So before I even had Gracie, I had her at 42. So my body was pre-menopause. I actually went into menopause right after having her. I went into early menopause. If you kind of understand how the human body works when you're in a high state of chronic stress, your brain is being flushed with cortisol constantly. There's so many different health things that come in from chronic stress and high cortisol. Insulin resistance came in. I ended up being pre-diabetic. The biggest thing is that there was such a hormonal imbalance in my body before I even had Gracie that sent my body into kind of a tailspin where I was really struggling was the emotional side of that before the physical side kind of came in. I was dealing with a lot of depression and not just like the blues. There was something so deep that I felt like I just wanted to end my life and I didn't want to hurt anybody or myself. I literally would just say, I just want the world to stop spinning. I just want to get off. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be a wife anymore. I don't want to be a mom anymore. I just can't do this anymore. I would just keep putting the mask back on that rhinestone mask. We're fine. I got to go out and, take one for the team and put on my smiling face again and go do the outreach or, take care of my family, my husband, my kids. I'm okay. And you do that for so long, you just can't keep doing it. I did have a mental health breakdown as well. When people don't understand what's going on internally in your body, from the spirit level, from the physical level, from the emotional level, they kind of look at you like, there's something wrong with you. Then the guilt comes in because you're trying not to look like somebody has lost their mind. So that's kind of where I was at, feeling bad that I was going through all that, but not knowing how to get out of that. And that sent me on a journey to look and see like, what have other special needs moms done? I knew something had to change. I just didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to get out of the postpartum depression. I'm saying like we ended our youth outreach when she was 7 or 8. And I was still feeling that way. I knew something was wrong. And so I decided to do some research to see what was out there. Honestly, at that time, there's more knowledge, more information now, but there was very little information out there to help me understand how to walk through this. There was stuff that I found on caregiver syndrome, which is like when you're dealing with an ailing parent. There was a lot of information. So caregiver syndrome came up, but nothing for special needs moms. So I decided to put a post out on Facebook and I decided to ask a bunch of other moms in the different groups I was in if they'd be willing to be interviewed. And I just started doing interviews for moms. Literally, I got such huge response from all over the country, even some other countries where people wanted to be interviewed to tell me their story. That's kind of where my journey began, and understanding the deeper effect that happens when you have this unmanaged stress and you have things going on in your body now. I was starting to get the puzzle pieces together, but not quite. This was This is where my journey from this point goes on, and all the years of research that I've done, but that's where it really began. It was my own mental health that was out of control. My body was out of control. I couldn't manage even normal day-to-day life stuff. Something had to change because again, that mama bear that I told you about in last episode was still there. I knew I had to get it together to take care of her because who else was going to do it? You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Kind of like put your big girl panties on, Deena, get it together. You've got a child that needs you 24/7. She can't do anything on her own. Stop crying about it, and so I was in that mode and then also feeling like I wish somebody would just help me, so it was this back and forth like torment. Honestly, it was torment wrestling inside my head and my body.
That's not good on your nervous system, as you were mentioning, because you're in that constant fight,
Fight,
flight,
flight,
freeze,
fawn. Yeah.
and like you're just constantly in survival mode is really what it is.
Mhm.
Barely keeping your head above water. At some point, you had to there had to be a transition here. God came in, he had to help you through that. There had to be a point in your walk with the Lord where you're like, okay, God, I can't do this. We eventually come to the end of ourselves. You said you were suicidal, you had, all the mental health breakdown. For me, that was the point where I was like, okay, God, I can't do this anymore. For me, it was a gradual transition process. God began to take me day by day into kind of stripping away all of those things. First, youth ministry. I stepped down from youth ministry and I began to lay down some of those things that I had felt that were so intertwined with my identity, with who I was. And as I began to do that, he began to heal those areas and he began to show me who he really created me to be, not all those things, those titles or hats that I wore, but who Christina Smith was. And so where did that happen for you in this process?
My story is very similar to yours. It's been an ongoing process. I'm still in the process now. I'm not nearly where I was before, but sometimes I look at myself and I think I'm unrecognizable to who I was 5, 10 years ago. I'm not even the same person, but I still struggle with a lot of the same stuff, but I'm able to look at it through a different lens. It has been a gradual becoming, an undoing and a becoming is what it is. And I did
Yes.
have to find my identity outside of being a mom, a youth director, a wife, a friend. I had to find that. So that really didn't happen until we closed the outreach. So that this is one of those things like we sometimes say Jehovah's sneaky. At the time, I thought it was a terrible thing that God did when we had to close the outreach. It was a financial thing, but no matter what we did, every single door was closed. We were trying to purchased the building that we were in. We were renting it, and it ended up getting taken from us. And we lost everything. We lost our entire life savings. We lost all of our retirement trying to keep this building going. We had already put in probably $100,000 of our own money into it, renovating it, and it was just taken from us. So there was that added stress. And then there was a grieving of that. And so that was God saying, I said it's time to stop this. We kept trying to keep it going and we were beyond God's grace of keeping the ministry going. So sometimes God comes in and disrupts something that feels like a death because either we're not being obedient or he's like, you have to go on this other path now. So it was then that I really had a lot of marriage issues because my husband was very upset that we lost the building because it was all his money that went into that, all his hard earned money that we lost, his retirement and all of that. So there was a really dark season in our marriage that we had to go through. And I'm raising Gracie, trying to figure out what's going on. But that was the point where, okay, God took me out of the outreach. So then there was a season of probably 7 years, honestly, where I was deep in healing. I didn't even know I needed healing. I didn't know what inner healing was or deliverance or anything like that. And it was just this letting go of everything that I thought my life was, the direction that it was going in. And literally, I had to get to a place of surrender. I didn't even really know what surrender was. Now, mind you, we've been serving God in a ministry capacity, helping, preaching, doing all those things, but I never really knew God as like a personal relationship that deep, somebody that cared enough to help me walk through that. I was always like, I was serving him like he was like my boss, somebody that I was serving, but not somebody that cared about me like their child. He wanted me to get to that place. And sometimes you got to be stripped of everything. So we were stripped of finances. We almost had to foreclose on our house. Our marriage was struggling. I was struggling with my relationship with my other kids. My health was struggling. God had to get me to the end of there was nothing I could do on my own. There was nothing Deena could do to fix the problem. That's when surrender came in. That's when I learned who God was. And that's honestly when I learned who the Holy Spirit was. I wasn't raised in a church that really promoted or talked about the Holy Spirit. I knew that was part of the Trinity. That's when I really understood of what it means to partner with the power of the Holy Spirit. And then the healing happened. But again, it was gradual. It wasn't like this epiphany that I had. There was a wrestling that I did, and it's still a lot of me complaining with God and isolating myself away. So if you are somebody that does struggle with depression or even suicidal thoughts, one of those things that you go through is isolation. You isolate yourself away from everybody else because you can't handle that, or you don't, whatever it is, you don't know whether somebody's going to understand what you're going through. So there was a season of being like, we were these big figures in our community. Everybody knew who the Trocinos were. We were very active in our community and the leadership. We knew everybody very well. We were on TV, we were in newspapers, all of that, to not knowing anybody and going back to this place of nothing. So I went from big to nothing, and that's when God transformed me. It wasn't in the bigness that I found him. It was in the quiet moments of tears and the quiet moments of, God, I can't do this anymore. Take this away. Either take my life or take this situation and transform it. He did not take my situation and transform it. I'm just going to tell you right now, that's not how my story goes. He did not change my situation. He changed me in the situation, and he made me bigger. He equipped me to handle the situation, to handle the marriage issues, to repair the issues with my older children, to parent Gracie from a place of peace and joy, not from stress and striving. It was just him holding my hand through the process. That's how it happened. It was me continuing to let go and surrender and let go and surrender. As I was doing that, something was birthed out of that.
That's beautiful. Looking for a way to protect your savings in uncertain times? Birch Gold makes it simple to diversify with gold and silver. To learn more and get started, visit ChristinaSmithOfficial.com. That's ChristinaSmithOfficial.com. You said something, it's in the point of surrender. When we come to the end of ourselves, that's often when God does his greatest work through us. At what point in that process did you start Specially Empowered Moms?
It was during that process that was started. So I started it, I want to say 4 years ago, but I wasn't the right person yet. So the idea was there. It started from the interviews. When I was doing the interviews with these moms, again, it was just so that I could get some understanding of how do you walk through this, because I knew I could not do it on my own anymore. I was just trying to figure out what other moms did. What ended up happening is there was such a bond with these women. Most of these women were like, nobody ever asked me how I felt about the diagnosis, or how I was taking care of myself. It was like for the first time, somebody gave them a safe space and permission to share their story. It was one after the other after the other. And there was one that was, the first story was such an extreme situation. She was dealing with, her son was 15 at the time, but he was nonverbal and very violent. She ended up getting a divorce. Nobody wanted to help her, take care of her. Her adult children left. So she was on her own, and her son was physically violent. She would be punched and bitten every single day. He would spread feces all over the walls. He kept flooding the house from the sinks. She couldn't leave him. She couldn't get a job. My heart broke for her because I thought my situation was hard, but when God let me see something from that extreme, and then it was like all the in-betweens. There was a mom that was what's called a medical mom, where you're dealing with a medically fragile child. She said the first year of her child's life, she was in the hospital every single day, not knowing whether her child was going to live the next day. She said, you don't realize how great the sound of your own name is when you hear for an entire year from nurses that come in, hi, mom, hi, mom. Nobody ever addressed her as her name. I never realized that either. My heart broke for her. It was just so many stories of these moms. I knew this was so much bigger than me, so much bigger than my comfort of trying to figure out how do I get it together. I knew there needed to be a community of moms that could come together, share their stories, do life together, and have somebody understand them. Now, again, 4 years ago, I wanted to launch that. We started everything, but I hadn't done my own healing yet. My marriage was still struggling, and I thought this would fix it, and it didn't. And I got very sick to the point where I almost lost my life. And I was, dealing with a toxic mold illness that, again, when your body's already in a high state of chronic stress and your nervous system shut down, Now you're exposed to mycotoxins. That literally shut my body down. I had to take a step away from Especially Empowered Moms and writing a book. God took everything away, stripped me from it because I didn't do the healing first. Then I had to go through again, surrender and find a new identity, lay that down, make peace with that. Then when I did, God brought it back in such a beautiful way. I'm now the person that can be used in that capacity. I'm no longer a victim. I'm able to actually help moms from a healed place. So the journey's been beautiful, wonderful, crazy, upside down, mixed up. It's just one of those things that it's hard to even really explain it, even in just a short interview. But God did an absolute miracle in saving my life. I didn't even realize that it was Gracie that was going to save my life. Something that I didn't expect. She's the one that actually God used to not only heal me, save me, help me to understand what true love really is, but it launched me into something that I could have never imagined that I would be doing now. I would have never known this looking back 15 years ago when this all started to where I'm at now.
If someone if someone's listening today and they're wondering, am I a specially empowered mom? What does it mean to be a specially empowered mom?
Especially empowered mom is somebody that has done the inner work. It's basically pull your big girl panties up and you got to do the work, which means nobody is coming for you. It doesn't matter whether it's physical work, you might have a trainer, but you're the one that has to exercise. It might be mental work, you're the one that has to retrain your brain. It might be spiritual work, you're the one that's going to have to get time alone with God. So it's first, you have to take 100% responsibility for your own life and start the healing process. So do the work. Then from that place, it's somebody that knows her worth. She knows who she is as a daughter of the King. She knows who she is. And she takes that and partners with God in the role of a mother. And then she becomes the gatekeeper of her home. She can protect her home from that place. So a healed mom creates a healed environment. A thriving mom creates a thriving home and a thriving marriage. You can't do that from a place of despair and brokenness and nervous system burnout. So you have to go through the process. So again, you have to heal first. You got to do the work, be willing to face that, do a self-evaluation and say, look, things are not working. What's working, what's not working. Especially empowered mom is somebody that's ready to do that. They're ready to not be a victim. They're ready to not blame anybody else. They're ready to do whatever is necessary, and they operate and walk in their God-given identity and authority against the real enemy that's been trying to kill, steal, and destroy us. And that's what Especially Empowered Mom is.
You said something right there, like the real enemy that's coming to steal, kill, and destroy us. What lies do moms often believe, and how can they replace those lies with God's truth?
I would say that most moms, especially in extreme situations, think that they're alone. They think nobody's going to understand what they're going through. That's a lie, because God says, I will never leave you or forsake you. God says that I will fight for you. All you need to do is be still. There's so many scriptures that talk about how God is right there with us. Do not fear. I have not given you a spirit of fear, but of love, power, and a sound mind. There's so many scriptures I had to literally meditate on and recite over myself, because we feel like nobody gets it. Even when you're amongst moms, even in the special needs community, there's other moms that, are dealing with more extreme situations. So you're never alone. Honestly, you're not really alone in your family either. A lot of times I think we isolate ourselves away, but there is a community around you if you allow them to contribute. The other thing I think that's another lie is that God can't use me for anything else, but he created us for a purpose. He knit us together in our mother's womb, and he has a plan and a purpose for our life, and it is good. He will use all things for our good according to the plan that he's called us to. So when you think like, this is my life, I'm just going to be a special needs mom for the rest of my life, there's nothing else I can do. That's not true. When you do all the things that we were talking about here, and you heal and you do all those things, God will show you that path. Now, there may be a season where you have to lay all that down, but God is not telling you to take away your dreams. He didn't ask you to give up your life just because he gave you a special needs child. That was one of the biggest lies that I believed, that somehow I had to give up everything. What Deena wanted didn't matter anymore because there was a much bigger purpose for my life now. Now I'm learning I get to have both. I can still be a good mom, even in the challenging seasons of raising a special needs child, and I still get to be an individual. I still get to have a business. I can still influence other moms and help them. I don't have to choose one or the other. So there's many lies that we believe that their scripture speaks about.
So parenting a child with unique needs, does come with its own challenges, but also some incredible joys. What are some of the ways you've seen God's faithfulness through Gracie's life?
One of the things with Gracie is that she has a supernatural ability to be able to connect with people at a heart level. She doesn't see skin color or gender or anything. She just sees people. And she loves God in a way that don't think I've ever seen an adult love God. She just has a way of connecting people. But you remember when we talked, I prayed that God would use her to captivate the world, that everywhere she went, people would find joy just by being in her presence. And that's exactly what it is. I see a God thing in her every time we leave and go to the grocery store, and she hugs people and she makes them feel better. She carries the presence of God on the inside and the outside, just being around her. At first, I was having a really hard time grasping that because she got so much attention, especially as a little one. I would almost think that people were like feeling sorry for me and they were just trying to be nice. Then I started realizing, no, they actually see God. They see Gracie the way God sees her. I was the one that was viewing her through the wrong lens. She helped me actually see God differently, but see people differently. I mean, there's countless stories that I can tell you. She's very forgiving. She is absolutely the most forgiving person I've ever met. She's the most challenging person I've ever met, too. She's just so forgiving and so loving. And she's the only human being on the planet that has seen all sides of me unfiltered. Not even my husband has seen that. Gracie has seen the good, the bad, the ugly. And she's the one I feel the most at home with. Outside of God himself, she's the one that I can literally, because I can laugh and sing and we can be silly. You know, there's people in our lives, we can't really fully express that, but we can sing at the top of our lungs. And that is such a gift that we have. She just brings that everywhere she goes.
That's
She's just a
beautiful.
light. She's the light.
She's exactly what you prayed for. Many moms pour out every ounce of energy caring for their kids. How can they also care for their own soul without feeling guilty for needing rest or help?
Rest and help is mandatory if you want to do this. It is not optional. If you make it optional is when you are going to be stressed out and when you're going to feel alone and all those things start flooding in and the despair floods in. I had to get to a point where myself had to be the number one priority. And most people look at that as being selfish, but it's not. That's how you serve your family. When you are taking care of yourself and your own needs, then you could serve out of the overflow. So picture like a vessel and you're trying to live life or parent or even be in a marriage with an empty vessel. You've got to keep filling that up. And everybody has their own things that fills up their bucket, fills up their vessel. It might be spending time with your girlfriends. It might be getting away and going to the gym. It might be spending time with God in prayer and worship. Whatever it is, fills your bucket, but you've got to keep putting it in because it's going to keep getting drained because you still have a lot of responsibilities, but you have to keep a constant flow going in so that eventually it's out of the overflow that all the other needs are going to be met. It's not out of your flow. It's not out of your reservoir. You need the full reservoir filled. It's out of the overflow that everything gets done. So it's our responsibility to keep that bucket full. That's by taking care of yourself, getting enough rest, eating nutrient-rich foods, making sure that you are getting sunlight, all those things, whatever you got to do, take little vacations, whatever that is. Now, especially these moms don't necessarily have the same ability to take vacations. So you might have to go and take a mental vacation in the bathroom or something.
I love it. I love it. That is true. I know we've been on the phone many times and Gracie's popped in and it's the joy. You don't get a lot of private times. Honestly, as a parent in general, I mean, when my daughter was really little, there is no off limit space for little kids, not even the
for sure.
bathroom. you know, I have one last question for you, Deena. We're talking about life not going as planned. Looking back over your life now, your life clearly probably didn't go anything like what you would have planned for it for yourself. They say hindsight's 2020. Looking back over what God has done with your life now, what beauty do you see that he's brought out of it?
Couldn't imagine my life any different than it is now. Like anything being better than what it is now. Now, again, what I was saying is that he didn't change the circumstances, but he made me better in them. So now I have the ability to be able to love differently, see people through a different lens, even love my daughter in a different way. So the beauty that he has shown me through this entire journey, I wouldn't have known that 15 years ago. So I guess if I were to leave any kind of encouragement to somebody that might be going through this and they're at the beginning stages of that, Stick with the process. Just trust God. He has a blueprint for your life. He knows what's up ahead that you can't see. His plans and ways are always better than ours. He's never going to do anything that's going to take away something, that he isn't going to give us something exceedingly above beyond what we could ever think or imagine. That's really where I think my life is at now. It's exceedingly bigger and better than I could have ever imagined because it's internal. It's not that I have a bigger house or a better marriage or all this money in the bank. Who I get to be as a person, who I get to choose to show up to life to be every day, you can't put a price tag on that. So, that's what makes my life exceedingly abundantly better than what it was, is because of the person I got to be through this journey.
I'm thinking back to when we first started this conversation in episode 1. God was preparing you along the way for where Gracie, because you said, I remember now, you said that you were working with kids who had was it Asperger's and
Asperger's, they had all different things of special needs.
so he was like preparing you way before you ever got pregnant for what you were going to walk through. I think that is such a cool part of your story. What final encouragement would you give to someone who maybe they're not a special needs mom, but we're talking about those unexpected life-changing moments in our life. Our life isn't going as we planned for it to go. What would you say to someone who gets the unexpected life-changing event? What would you say to them on how to walk it out with God's help, with God's grace?
Well, just encourage them that it is a journey that they have to go on. If they are willing to surrender their own will, their own agenda, their own idea of what life looks like, God will paint the most beautiful picture for you if you allow it. And if you are willing to let the Holy Spirit guide you, God always has a plan that is bigger. What might look like a detour ends up actually taking you down a path that is, it's not necessarily even a detour. It literally was the destination in the first place. We were on a detour. What we thought our life was supposed to be was the detour. When God redirects us to something else, that's the destination. That's the beauty of what he already had planned for us. He didn't disrupt our plans. We're the ones that were on the wrong path. All he did was get us back on the right path. So just trust the process again and just allow him to show you the beauty of what your life is.
Deena, thank you so much for sharing your heart with us today. Your story is such a beautiful reminder that God's strength meets us in our weakness and that his purpose can rise from even the hardest places that we experience in our life. If you'd like to connect with Deena or learn more about her ministry, visit speciallyempoweredmoms.com and follow Specially Empowered Moms on YouTube and Instagram. If this conversation encouraged you or a special needs mom, share this episode with them and subscribe to Witness the Wonder. Share it out there. Every single one of you who subscribe, you help us spread the message, spread hope, spread faith to others out there who are going through similar situations.
Thanks for tuning in to Witness the Wonder. If today's story encouraged you, share it with a friend. And stay connected at witnessthewonderpodcast.com. You can also follow us at Witness the Wonder on your favorite social media platform for updates and behind-the-scenes moments. Let's witness the wonder together. Remember, God is always at work in your story.